Good morning, guys. I'm back here over at Integrity RV in Mesa, Arizona. And today we're going to work on this 2021 Villagio Class C motorhome from the luxurious Renegade RV, which is part of Rev Group there. And we're going to work on the full wall slide out on this 2-year-old motorhome. And yes, it's an electric SCHWINTEK slide out room mechanism that is having a problem. Now, from what I'm being told, is when the slide out room runs out, it makes a pretty bad popping sound. So let's see, extend. Now, I'm not sure the camera picked up the popping sound. If we go outside and take a look at the rack there, you might see what I'm talking about. The mechanism's starting to get chewed up and eaten up. Now, this is just aluminum that is like CNC milled. And so the spur gear that interlocks with it, part of the slide up mechanism, is chewing it up. See it up there too. Now, I took a look at it from underneath, and it does look like it was installed pretty well. The slide has roller supports on it. It didn't seem crooked, and it is supporting the weight of it because I can't move it with my fingers, which means that at least the V rollers or the bead roller right there, you see I can spin that by hand, is not supporting the weight of the slide out room, which is really a pretty good indicator that the slide was installed correctly, because this mechanism is not designed to support the weight of the slide out, just move it in and out. Now, the story I have is that on this 2021 Villagio, Integrity did sell it, and a few weeks later the owner came back saying that it was making a popping sound going in and out. And true to their name and to form, they offered to go ahead and assist with the repair on this. And their technician and my good friend Pablo already did the diagnostic and troubleshooting and ordered the replacement parts for it already, which comes in this tube. And you have to build the whole mechanism now. They used to ship it in a big box already built for you, but I guess they figured that it was cheaper to ship it in parts and then you get to build it. So this is how they used to ship it. You can see those angle brackets screwed in over there, and then have another one on this side screwed to the other end. So that's what it used to look like when they shipped them. Now, because I'm a mechanic and a technician, I don't necessarily trust Lippert that they set the right part, so I need to uncrate this and make sure that it is the right slide mechanism. And once I've verified that, then we'll go ahead and start tearing this apart and replacing the slide out mechanism on it. Unwrap it and do a little bit of measurements on it to make sure that these are the right lengths and the mechanism on the side is the right height, because it is a little bit asymmetrical. If you've noticed, you have a longer side and a shorter side. Now, the reason why I'm doing the repair is that Pablo is generally a workhorse and he deserves vacation too, so I'm trying to help him out to get this job done for the owner when he's going on vacation. Now, I'm no engineer, like I repeatedly say in my videos. This slide's a lot longer than I expected it to be, but see, I'm touching on the wall right there, but down below here there's a pretty big gap, so that means the whole slide out is tipped out at the top. And if I look from outside, I think even you guys can see that it's out further at the top than it is at the bottom. While it's not uncommon for SCHWINTEK slides to be out of time or walking back and forth from the rear to the back, they're supposed to never, ever, ever get out of sync from the top to the bottom of the track, because they're supposed to be captured and locked in position. Because as we've seen in a few other SCHWINTEK videos that I've done, the motor drives spur gears, and then there's a axle or a transmission shaft right there that goes to the bottom one. So there's no way this gear can turn without that gear turning, without that gear turning. So they're supposed to always be locked into place against the racks right here. So This is never supposed to happen, but strangely enough, it seems to happen quite a bit. I've had this discussion with a number of salespeople and industry leaders. I don't understand why Lippert keeps selling this and manufacturers keep installing it, because Lippert actually does offer the slim rack slide, which is nearly identical, and Winnebago seems to be the only one that uses it consistently. But the slim rack slide has these billet aluminum rails that are free floating on the side. You can see there's no tension on it whatsoever, so you have one at the bottom and one at the top. Same sort of a motor transmission setup on these, which are in the wall. That runs the slide out room in and out. And very rarely do these fail, or at least their failure rate seems to be substantially less from my point of view than the SCHWINTEK slide outs. 38 and 38. The lower tracks will have a lip that goes across the bottom of the slide out opening, and of course we have a left and a right there underneath. The top ones won't have that angle because you can't. But it looks like we have a set for the top on the left, a set for the top on the right, so that's good. Alright, if we look at the top there, looks to be about the same mechanism. And on the front one, we look good there too. So they sent all the right parts. Now there's also these angle aluminum tracks. This is what used to be connecting everything together. Remember what I said, we have to keep the whole thing in line so that it's completely in sync top to bottom. So I will have to build these mechanisms before I install them, and then we use these as braces to keep it in line as we put it into place. So we're going to replace the SCHWINTEK slide out mechanism on this 2021 Renegade Villagio Class C motorhome on a Sprinter chassis. Now my first step is going to be to retract the slide out room, because you guys can see I'm right against the wall back here. So getting to the screws that are on the back side right there will be quite difficult. It'll make more sense once I get it retracted and you can see what I'm talking about. This is what a lot of manufacturers call packaging. And when you watch the videos at the factories and how they repair these slide out rooms, it seems to be very, very simple until you do it in real life and you're like, there's no room to do anything that you just said was really simple. It's kind of strange because I did run this thing out and in before I started the video, and now you can definitely see a big gap at the top, and we're tight at the bottom, another tight at the bottom here, and a big gap at the top. So I'm definitely going to be concerned that maybe the slide's too long or big or heavy from Renegade and Rev Group, and my repair will break over time. But I didn't troubleshoot it, I'm just installing the mechanism. That's my caveat, okay? So as we've covered on a couple of SCHWINTEK videos before, there's access issues. Let me try to get some light for you guys. There is some screws right back here on this clamp that holds that mechanism against the wall opening itself on the back side. So these I can get to okay. And the screws right here I can get to pretty easily because we'll take these out before we run the slide out room out. Same with the ones down there. But when it comes to getting the screws back here, it's already too tight for me to get back there. Crawl on top. Getting to those screws reliably is going to be quite the ordeal. Same with the screws on the extruded racks or the tracks down there. So at the very least, I think this fascia trim is going to have to come off. Have to get this mattress out of the way. Now, do I think in the normal world the manufacturer of this 2-year-old motorhome should be covering the repair for what really seems like bad engineering and bad design from the manufacturer? Of course I do. Do I think Lippert should cover the repair because they oversell their product for what it can do? Of course I do. But we don't live in a normal world. We work in the RV world where it only has to make it the first year, and then after that it's the owner's problem or the secondary dealer's problem that sells it as a used coach. It's only 2 years old. Naturally, they put screws behind here. You guys see them? So I got to take that block off from behind. See if you guys can help me do this. It wasn't so hard just to get a block of wood off that was brad nailed on from the front. Whew. Alright, now I just have to break all the brad nails holding this on so we can pull this part off. So if I just tried to pry it off without breaking those nails, this wood's dried out enough that it would crack pretty easily because look how thin it is. And then the repairs just keep getting bigger. Now I can get all the screws out from here. Okay, so much more room here now. Yeah, that's your sill. Looks like they're using wood fascia as the actual fascia. There's not a metal flashing right there to keep water out. Cool. Alright, so to engage that bulb sill up there is just going against a wooden fascia block on the back side. I would have hoped to see a metal flashing that was sealed against here, but I didn't see that. It's kind of unimpressive. Alright, so now I can get to these screws pretty easily right here. I'll just be using the newer, bulkier Milwaukee angle drive attachment and square bit number 2 Robertson. And now I can just unscrew these out. There's one. A few more to go. Now, I'm not doing all of them, just the ones that'll be impossible for me to get from the outside. So we have all the screws out down there, that to that point, and to this point. Which is about, I don't know, about a third length of the track there. They do have top and bottom, so you want to get all of those. Yeah, I guess the bottom one doesn't have any bottoms. It's got that lip. So they are a little bit loose. Now next thing I have to do is all those against the mechanism in the wall. As these will clamp from the inside against the mechanism from coming out from the outside. Hopefully it'll make more sense when we get there. Alright, I think that was the last screw. Alright, that's out of the way. Behind here is going to be where the harness runs, so we'll have to get that loose. And so I'm pretty good on the outside here, except for I do not want the harness to go out with the mechanism when it's time. And then for those that were paying attention, there were long screws on the outside and short screws on the inside. So don't get those mixed up. And there's just a block of, looks like ABS as a spacer, because the wall probably wasn't thick enough to house the mechanism. But you can see at the bottom, there's like a trough to catch all the aluminum shaving. So that's good. Now pretty much I just do the exact same thing on the front, but the front's a lot easier. Get to all the screws, including the ones back here. Now if I had to be honest, I guess I probably didn't need to get these screws from the inside already. Normally there's usually one more back there, but this line should be where it's exposed on the outside. I didn't know that there weren't any screws past that point. Now we can run the slide-out room back out, extend. Does that keep getting worse? Alright, I'm gonna have to support the slide-out room now. because kind of the next step is to take the mechanism off by taking this trim off. Now we can see the screws that hold it in place right there. That's pretty much it. But hopefully now you can see if there was a screw way back there. That's why I would have done it before moving the slide out rim out, because now I don't have to worry about any screws back there. These are easy to come out now. Now because I'm doing a mobile setup and I don't have a forklift with me over here, we'll be using these utility carts with wheels on them. Just take the handle off of this one. Now don't forget guys, even though I call myself an expert, that's mostly marketing. I'm mostly a hack. And tend to use whatever is on hand rather than investing in specialized tools for everything. And I don't know if it works. Then it works. And not everybody's gonna have a forklift when they do this. So with it supported underneath now, but we're way out of tolerances from the top to the bottom. I'm gonna release the bottom track first, which I hope will allow the bottom to pop out some. Now the top track, the fascia on the front and on the top are still installed, so it shouldn't be able to fall out. Shouldn't. Alright, so that's definitely loose. Don't forget, it is still captured in there, I just can't pull it out. Alright, now there is a seal that comes from Lippert on the back side of here. It's just a foam seal. Let's make sure I have this loose before I start cranking on it. Alright, I think that's loose. Now hopefully I should be able to get some pressure off of everything. Do the same thing over here. So I hope you guys noticed I do have it kind of outboard to kind of use the rollers right here as a fulcrum to actually push up the slide out box itself. So now you can see I got a little bit more of a gap there, and it doesn't have that downward slope to it anymore, because these things only go in and out straight or parallel. In fact, if we come inside right here, you can see the lower track is now protruding past the slide out opening or the box itself. So we've come out a good inch and a half to where it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be able to do this. It's supposed to be captured. It can never get out of sync top to bottom. Alright, so pretty much the next step is going to be to take the mechanism off from the outside, which I already showed you were behind these screws right there. And I'll try to do it one at a time to make it simple. Alright, so we just start taking these screws out. Sorry, I dropped my Milwaukee and it wasn't as tough as my Craftsman, so the battery doesn't stay in. Very disappointed in this entire setup. Batteries don't even seem to last as long as that Craftsman. That was, man, those things were like 13 years old almost. Ugh. Oh, battery's dead. I've been so busy I haven't been able to restock the truck, so we're down to the real batteries because I didn't bring a battery charger with me. This one has too much power, right? This will be the last one. I guess that's a factory bend on the screw. Alright, there's a little bit of bead of sealant right there, so I'll cut that. I'll just dig out the rest of the screws on the rack up here. Looks like the plot thickens because there's like a spacer, like an acrylic spacer underneath the middle rack. Kind of see protruding out right there too. That's very curious. I Can't say acrylic would have been my first choice for to be exposed on the outside. I don't know. I don't think that's factory. Somebody's tried to fix this slide before. So now that track is loose, that track is loose, that one's loose. So we should be pretty much ready to pull this out. Okay, the mechanism's loose now. Alright, don't forget I did just call myself a hack. So what I'm going to do is we're going to leave this motor plugged in, okay? But on the front motor right here, I'm going to go ahead and unplug it. Now, the SCHWINTEK controller won't allow a system that only has one motor hooked up to it to work very long. But we can hit retract right here. Alright. And then if we go the opposite way with it, we can start getting this track right here to extend out so I have enough room to work on the outside. But you do have to work it fairly quickly. It'll only move for about half a second, and then you have to go the other direction to reset the controller. And yes, I know that everybody out there, they do have a special tool to allow you to operate these motors independently for troubleshooting. You can just hook up that harness directly to the box, hook it up to a battery, like a cordless drill, and operate the motor independently. But I don't have that, because if I had that, I'd have to work on SCHWINTEK slides more often in order to justify the expense of it. But I think I have enough slack right in here now that I can get the whole mechanism out. I'm sorry if I didn't explain that too much. You just go one direction. After about half a second, the controller goes into fault. The only direction you can go at that point is the opposite direction. But if you just momentarily allow it to go the opposite direction, then you go the other direction as much as you want each time, just kind of working it back and forth until you get all the slack you need. And of course, don't forget to unplug the motor, because this motor is still good. So we got a new one already. And the new one comes with a new motor. So we definitely don't want to damage the connection or the motor. Well, there it is, the entire slide out mechanism. It's been removed. You can see that acrylic spacer. It's like Lexan or plexiglass. This definitely seems like a dealer spot repair. Hopefully don't need that back on again. What I did notice is the bead roller, or the V roller right there, is cracked. Oh. Okay, well, they put spacers down below too. I don't know if it's already been repaired before. There's our new motor. Oh, our motor, so we'll be saving that part. You guys remember we had a lot of shavings right here. Try to clean that all up, and then I had a broken screw. Let me extract that. Just trying to make my life easier. Okay, well, so the next step is actually probably the most important step, is to build the new system. So we have this one. Yeah, should be that one. At the bottom. You can tell because it's notched out right there. To go around the non-problematic picture frame trim has a fascia right here, so that's why it's notched out right there. Luckily they put a little cap bead of a sealant right there. And as far as the rest of the sealant goes, Lippert does already install a gasket on there. It's just a foam gasket. Take this paper off before we install it. Grab my other two racks right here. I'll just lay them out. Now I have to build this and keep it in sync and in time with itself. And we want the motor kind of, I don't know, not in the middle, but maybe a third of the way in. Now I've tried to explain the anatomy of the SCHWINTEK slides a few times on my channel, and nothing ever translates very well. But there's this little guide right there. It's got a pretty good lip. It's gonna fit into the profile of this extrusion right there. Now, Lippert already went ahead and put a piece of foam in there to keep water from making its way inside, because this is the inboard side or the room side, and this would be the outboard side or the exterior fascia side. So because it has that foam in there, we can't feed the mechanism in from this side because, you know, we'll get the foam's in the way. So we will have to feed it from the opposing side right about there. Now I won't be able to actually push it on the spur motor right there because it won't turn, because the motor itself is installed. So really the first step I need to do is take this screw out to release the motor. It's so much easier on the ground than when it's in the RV. Okay, now we should just be able to carefully lift that thing up. Wasn't too difficult, was it? But again, all this screw is doing is threading through the extrusion, and it goes basically into the slot right in the housing of that motor, and keeps the motor from lifting up. Not twisting, just lifting up, out. Just like that. So now with the motor out, you can see I can turn this by hand very easy, effortlessly. You can see those V rollers right there. Nothing wrong with them. These are not supposed to support any weight. They're not much better than a shower door roller. But it is a V profile. If you can see the profile on it. And that's what's going to ride on this profile of the extrusion. Now one thing I forgot to show you guys is that you have to put on shoes to the wheels or the trucks or the drive mechanism. So in this setup, they came in a separate bag. They're right here. Don't forget to put these on. They can only go on one way. There's the profile for it right there. It has a matching profile of it right there. There's even a notch in the middle. Hang on the notch right. It's a ABS plastic nylon shoe to keep the metal from metal contact from binding the whole system up. Now, is there an easy way to build these? Probably with a jig. Everything set up? Probably. But I have a rug right here. Alright, well Lippert gives some weird instructions in their videos, so this is how I like to do it. They say to put the bottom one in first, which is fine. And of course we have two more to do at the top. But now, it's always difficult to show anything. Alright, so as I try to push this one in and out, the whole shaft turns and all those gears turn. Now, it's going to be very difficult for me to line up another one with these that'll keep it in time or in sync with itself. Alright, because when I push this one down, it wants to push that one down, which is of course lifting up that. Now Lippert says to just come down here, manipulate the hex shaft by your hands, but I can't ever do that. So this is what I do. On that drive motor we just took out, there's this collar adapter. It has a hex shaft on one side and then a D shape on the other side to match the flat drive shaft of the motor. You might notice that the a 1/4 inch socket extension, or a 1/4 inch ratchet extension, fits in that D really easily, so now I can twist this very easily. So if I just go ahead and put it in there and use it as an extension or a socket, I can put it back into the hex shaft right in there. Let's see if you guys can see that better now. Right down there. And now with just a ratchet, I can move the whole thing pretty independently. You should be able to see those are pretty much in line. Not perfectly in line, but that one's definitely out of line because it's in further. So what Lippert says to do is to put everything up on end, right about there,
And we're going to use gravity to help us, so we'll just keep forcing it up. All right. Until everything lines up. And now we should be in sync. It's hard to capture on film, but basically all three of them are going to be popping up past the exact same spot when you're going up, and then gravity pops them all in the same position and syncs them at the same time. Now I like to try to get the drive kind of halfway in the racks right there, so there's not a lot of I guess shifting on these racks. And then we're going to want to measure still and make sure we have this where we want, and it's easier to measure off of a nice round number. So let's go ahead and bring it to lucky number 13. Lucky number 13. And look at that. Lucky number 13. Wow. So now we're pretty much in sync top to bottom. Now it's time to install this. So I do want to get this a little bit closer to the inside. I'll just move it there manually there. Now, as much as I don't like to give Lippert too much credit for anything, they do ship these angle aluminum pieces right here. They have the holes in them. It's hard to see. There's a little hole in each one of these racks right there. And we can use these angles right there to keep the ends of the rack from flopping about. So I'm just going to grab my all-important screws. These are just some self-tapping Phillips from another problematic manufacturer that I always say to keep those screws from. Now this is the lip that goes over the fascia block. So the gear's never going to get that far. Now this is pretty much how Lippert used to ship them, and they'd be in a flat box, and obviously this would take up a lot more space than just one tube. So I give them some credit for thinking outside the box, literally, on that one. But don't forget, we do need to take the backer off of this now, so we have a nice weatherproof connection. And then we got to resist the urge to add some sealant, so we do want a little bit of flex to where it's mounting. So it's not double-sided foam, but because it's going to be my name on it, I will add some sealant to this flange right here, which of course I'm also going to clean using my favorite foaming window glass cleaner. And even though the manufacturer didn't, I'm going to be adding a good bead of sealant right in this crevice right in there. So if water does get past this cap seal, like water is prone to do, it won't get into this area right in here and start rotting out the floor, because by nature of this lower guide, it's going to hold water. So I will add a bead of sealant right there for sure. So this is just clear silicone, really nothing special. Now that's going to fill the gap that water would like to fill. Two. I don't have the motor installed yet, okay? With a few more screws installed right here, we should just be able to grab this and move it by hand. It'll be definitely a lot easier to move it from the middle than from the bottom. Then we can take a look at the profile, make sure that we're doing okay, get it past this right there. But don't forget, we still have to put the motor in. And I know a lot of you might be thinking, but James, what about that plexiglass shim that was behind that rack? Well, I don't know why it was there. It's still down there if I need it, but I can't troubleshoot two things at the same time. This shouldn't need to be shimmed. I don't know if it was shimmed because it was failing and they just tried to get it down the door when it was built. But now I guess you guys could at least believe me when I say that I feel pretty confident. Water won't be able to get behind the track right there at the corner right there. And same thing up here. Now we can remove this cross support. Definitely don't throw those away. Angle aluminum's nice. So we'll just put the union in on the shaft. Right down there. We get the motor. I'm just going to slide that in. We'll make sure it's dropped in place there, which it is. And then there's the opening on the motor right there, so that thread screw. Now I can put the screw back in, keep that motor from popping back up again. It's so much heavier than my screw gun. And now, hopefully, we can use the motor itself to drive itself back in the opening. Alright, even though I'm retracting it, I'm going to hit extend. Hope you can see the track moving in. Hopefully that gets you an idea of what we're trying to do. Now, of course, I still have to put a bead of sealant right here on the sidewall to seal off that mechanism. Just go ahead and put it right here. I'm sure I'll get the question, why don't you use putty tape? Well, putty tape on slide out openings tends to keep oozing and then creates a big mess against the rubber seals over time and actually causes a lot of problem. Has been my experience. So this clear silicone will be more than enough. I'm going to keep extending or retracting it until, oh look, that moved the slide out room. Now I just need to put the screws back in right here. Alright, got all those screws in now. I just have to clean up this side a little bit. Excess sealant. I still have the inside to put back together. I still have to do the other drive mechanism on the front. So let me do that real fast and then we'll check back in. Alright, so the other side I've replaced now too. Now we just have to put it back together. Kind of in the same manner we took it apart. So before I actually operate the slide out, I do want to put the clamp ring back on this side so it's getting supported and not trying to flex too much. And then pretty much the same thing over here. Now I did go ahead and cut this loose because sliding out that rack was a little bit harder without a little bit of slack on the fascia on this side. And then now we'll just be putting the self-tappers in that we took out. It'll go into the mechanism that we just put in. Alright. Have to do the same thing on that side too. Alright, I got the other motor plugged in right here, but before we run the slide out room in, I need to lower my supports over here. Get those all out of the way. Jeez, today, huh? Alright, so we are back on the rollers there. Don't worry about this. This is just a deformed plastic. That's not aluminum or anything. Okay. They're mounted there. Obviously, we're straight. But I didn't do any troubleshooting on this. I don't know. I'm a little concerned. I did put the shims back in, or why there were shims to begin with, if this was a problem, and I'm just doing a small repair that's going to get huge. So I'm very concerned. So I have both the motors hooked up now. I'm going to go ahead and extend. I'm now just recognizing that I don't have the fascia to stop it on this side. That's just trim that covers the screws. One more side to do. This will be the last one, and then we get to test the whole thing out. If it all works, then we just have to button it up. It's just gonna be a matter of getting the wood trim back on. And of course all the nails that are in our wooden fascia. We'll go ahead and line up the trim, covering the holes. And hopefully one more. We're good. I'll just have to run the screws in from behind like the factory did. Alright, now I just have to put the mattress back because I want to test it out like the owner's going to have it. Okay, slide that back. I'm calling that good enough. That has to be flipped up for the slide to work. Go ahead and run the slide out room in now. Retract. I think the battery voltage might be a little too low. Alright, we're bulk charging again. Here and retract. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. So I have a little bit more room back here to put the screws back in. You guys can't help me out. There's one. Oh, there's two. All right, so let's bring this thing in. Again, retract. Well, that did sound a lot better. No popping this time. Go ahead and go outside. Let's see. Look pretty good there. And I think we look really good there too. Fantastic. Let me get you guys situated one more time. And we'll watch this go out, and hopefully we'll be good. Alright guys, what do you think? That was an unedited slide out extension. I didn't see any popping. It went very, very smooth when I was on the inside. So Sorry the generator's running, but the batteries were going dead. I think we're good again. Alright, I just have to button this up, put this trim back in. That was more difficult than I wanted it to be. Just have a seal to put on the top, and then I'll clean up this sealant that oozed out. It's already set up pretty well. Lastly, I'll just have to put a cap seal on each one of these rails on each side. Well, I wish I could tell you it was easier to put those seals on than it really ended up being. But they were one-time use seals, so naturally it takes a lot of work to make them use a second time. Alright, turn the generator off so we can talk a little bit. Just replaced the two SCHWINTEK Slide out assemblies, including the motors, on this 2000, and I think it's a 2021 Villagio for Renegade. Now, I did not troubleshoot it or really find too much wrong with it, other than we did have some shims in there. They were plexiglass shims, and we had them on both sides. I don't know if I have them over here or not. So you can see they were on this side too, which was the front. But just on the top ones. I don't know who put them on there, when they were put on, how long ago they were put on. Do I feel confident I solved the problem? I feel confident that it's currently working just fine. I don't know why it was chewing up the rails or the rack so bad. And I can't say that in a year we won't have this problem again. We're going to do a quick autopsy of the old mechanism. The lower one's not chewed up too bad, except for, you know, right there. And that's about the only place that engages with these spur motors. It's just a tiniest of little surface area that engages the two together. That roller's not bad. Oh, no, rollers aren't bad. Don't see any indication of anywhere. The shoes aren't even broken on this one. I mean, it really does feel like Renegade is supporting the weight of the slide correctly on these rollers. I can't move them by hand, so that means the weight's on them. I do think it's too long. It does cantilever out quite a bit to just be supported by the rollers down there, so that does mean there is some strain on the racks up above that isn't supposed to carry any weight. If I do an autopsy on this side, that top roller we did see was split. I guess the spring retainers on the other rollers were missing. And this one's definitely been seen some better days on it too. That shoe is broken, but the roller isn't, and it's not bound up or anything. That shoe's not broken, that shoe's not broken. I think it's just the geometry and the weight. The spur gear, where'd it go? Right here. It doesn't completely bottom out on this rack. I think it's just barely engaging it right about there. And although this is not steel, it is a much harder metal than the aluminum. And like I said, this isn't a real spur gear, or this isn't a real gear profile, I don't feel like. And so the mesh between the spur gear and the rack is just a little too sloppy. And tolerances are not something that the RV industry excels at maintaining, so the opening is definitely going to be off center. Even the SCHWINTEK is designed to move a little bit. Oh, well, not that much, but that's why it has these guides in it right there to allow these to actually move in and out from this channel right there. So that's the best thing I can come up with. I'm hot and I'm tired, and much like Pablo, I have a vacation to go on too. I feel pretty confident that I did what I was asked to do, and hopefully you guys enjoyed coming along with me. I'm tired. Bye. Because as we've seen in a few other swim, because as we've seen in another Class C mini Winnie, the industry makes money. Don't worry, guys. And Lippert and Rev Group are huge companies, and they make money too. Oh, left it up here. But what should I expect? But what should anybody really expect for a luxury motorhome? Now I can. All right, one thing I forgot to try to do this one-handed.